I should have extra skin, right? I
Yes.
don't. So I ended up losing like 50 pounds in 2.5 months by doing two things. This is a crazy number, and I'm not exaggerating. They tried 25 different antidepressant medications on me because none of them did anything.
Wow. Hi, I'm Chris James, and you're watching Healthy Alternative. Today we have a special guest from left field. Justin Dorff is here with us, and essentially what happened was I saw some of your content. I think it was on YouTube. And I think I ended up at your Facebook, and I was just like, you know what? He seems like the type of person who is of a similar heart as me, with the brand that you're building and the way that you help people. And you have a great personal story, and I wanted to bring you on, introduce you to my audience, and give you an opportunity to share your story, share what you do, because I want to be a platform where people can come and talk about, how they help inspire others. We want to motivate and really just help people get outcomes. So, Justin, thank you for coming and spending a little bit of time with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Chris. I was actually super pumped when you reached out to me because, as I just told you before we hit record, I started watching some of your content, and I was like, yeah, we're on the same kind of aligned path here where we want to help others because we've been through experiences that a lot of the times we learn from a lot of failures. So now we can help others learn how to avoid a lot of the things that we learned the hard way.
hmm that's the whole key. Like each one teach one,
Yeah.
and we definitely got to learn to be open to learning from others' mistakes. There's an old quote or whatever, yeah, quote I guess that says that a smart man learns from his mistakes. A wise man learns from others' mistakes.
Amen.
And even as a young boy, that resonated with me. I'm like, I don't want to make the mistake. I'll learn from your mistake.
Yeah.
So Justin, before we kind of get started, I do want to give you an opportunity to just introduce yourself, maybe talk a little bit about like who you are, what you've built, and then we're going to go into your backstory.
Yeah, absolutely. So who I am today is immensely different from who I was 15 years ago. So 15 years ago, I was in grad school. I wanted to be a clinical psychologist. I wanted to counsel people. But during that time, I mean, this was probably in the middle of the decade that I was addicted to pain medication.
Mm,
And um, essentially, I went through all of this addiction and all of this education in biology and psychology so that I could ideally fix myself, if you will, because
mm,
I had dealt with depression since I was about 14 or 15 years old. And I was certain that it had to be some type of biochemical imbalance, and I wanted to fix myself. Um, Needless to say, God always has a different path than the one that we lay out for ourselves. And so while I was in grad school, it became very apparent to me that I could not break this addiction to opiates myself. And that is the very condensed version of who I was in my 20s. A drug addict, someone who only really cared about himself, very selfish, but also very depressed and
mm,
no hope whatsoever. Um, who I am today is like you. I focus primarily nowadays on content creation, sharing my experiences, sharing what I'm testing out. You were talking about how a wise man learns from other people's failures. I need to get better at that because I'm still failing all of the time myself. I always joke like I have to learn everything the hard way, but once
yeah.
I learn it the hard way, then at least I've learned it, right? But what I really what my passion is today is, like I said, sharing my experiences, testing things out, researching them for other people so that then I can share it with them and hopefully save them a lot of time and also money,
Mm,
not wasted doing the quote wrong things, if you will.
right. hmm Yeah, it's interesting because that's how I am as well. As a matter of fact, I was moisturizing my face earlier and just kind of inspecting what I had going on because I've been testing a new therapy, and I got a chemical, like it was like a chemical peel kind of reaction on my face from using this, and I'm actually I'm actually still pretty pleased with the whole therapy and the whole experience. But the point is, like, I use myself as a guinea pig
Yep.
to see, if this is going to make sense for other people or if I could teach it. And it's very expensive to even test this stuff.
Yeah.
And then if it doesn't work, so I think what we do is super important.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, we are the similar. I joke with my wife is like because one of the first ideas I had when I moved on to YouTube was like, I think I'm just gonna call my channel Test Dummy and just test a bunch of crap out and see what happens. I didn't go that route, but I do test a lot of stuff like you.
yeah, yeah, that would have been good, man. I'm sure. Well, they have people in different categories that do that. If yours is going to be like that wellness niche, then that would have been super unique, I think.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your history a little bit more. Let's dive a little deeper. You mentioned depression, and really your goal, even when you were dealing with the drug addiction, your goal was to heal yourself. Like that
Correct.
was your goal. Where do you believe that your issues stem from as of today? Like you mentioned, you thought it was more of like a chemical imbalance.
Yeah.
Do you still believe that? Do you think that it stemmed from some type of trauma? Like, where do you think it came from?
That's such a good question because I have spent a lot of time thinking about, what was the actual cause. I don't think it's one singular thing that caused, let's say, the depression. The depression was probably the root issue, but one layer deep below the depression was my lack of passion and drive and purpose. Like when I was younger, what I believed was what everyone kind of told me at the time from public education and the other people pouring into me. It was like, in my mind, the purpose of life was to do really well in school so you could get into a good college. So then maybe you go to grad school so that then you can get a good job, buy a nice house, maybe get married, raise a family. And that sounded so boring and pointless to me
Yeah.
that it literally just sucked the life out of me. And I
Mm,
think that's where the depression stemmed from. Now, whether or not there was a chemical imbalance, um, that's a whole nother thing, a whole nother topic we could probably talk about for hours here. Because I certainly didn't eat properly. And there's a lot of research now that shows the relationship between gut health and those neurotransmitters that affect your mental health. Like
mhm,
it just keeps growing and building. So I'm sure that did not, you know, that did contribute to the issue. But the biggest thing was really that I just had no passion and no drive and nothing that I really woke up in the morning and felt excited about.
mm. I want to kind of touch on that a little bit because we live in a world where there is a outline or path that is created for us. I mean, before we were conceived,
Yeah.
somebody decided that this is how your life is going to progress, and it's that traditional outline. You
Mhm.
start off in school is the most important thing
Yeah.
when you're a child. And then we got to dive into, well, what is school teaching us?
Yeah.
Like, what are we actually learning, like for real? And after school, it's more school, which, what, 50 years ago, that wasn't even a thing. It was
No.
like, that was special if you went for higher education. My grandfather uh, finished school at a sixth grade level,
Yeah.
and raised a family of, he had 9 children, you know what I mean? And they all went off on their own, fairly successful. But now it's like, if you don't have a master's,
Yeah.
because it was you could get your bachelor's or your associate. Now it's like you got to have that master's,
And a master's now means nothing because everybody has them.
right? And so I think that what you picked up on was how purposeless this pre-made outline was for us, almost where our goal was just to become workers
Yeah.
and support a system that didn't even care about us. And I think that's where the depression came from.
Yep, absolutely. And yeah, and to jump back to what you were asking about, like the chemical imbalance and everything, certainly. So this is a crazy number, and I'm not exaggerating. Over the course from the age of 18 until I was 28, they tried 25 different antidepressant medications on me because none of them did anything.
Wow.
Because perhaps deep down, I mean, there's two possibilities, right? One, the antidepressants don't really do much in the first place. That's one possibility. The second is that it wasn't a chemical imbalance for me, and therefore those medications weren't going to fix something that wasn't actually a problem for me. I think
Mm.
it had more to do with, like we're talking about, the underlying motivation, the mindset, the negativity that once you kind of get trapped in that cycle, it's really hard to break. But that's what led me to the addictive tendencies. Started drinking when I was 15, got on opiates when I was 20, because it was an escape mechanism. It
Mm.
numbed. It didn't remove the depression, but it certainly took some of the thoughts away for a certain period of time, until at some point it just took over my life entirely.
Yeah, I was literally, as you're telling your story, I'm like, well, being on so many different medications, especially early on, I mean, I can't even imagine what that would do to you. But also, yeah, it's going to kind of foster that addiction, as well as, you know, finding a way to numb it. Like, okay, I'm trying all these different things, nothing is working. So then you default to, well, let's just numb it. And
Yep.
I find that a lot of people do that. Now, for you, it was the prescription drugs and things of that nature. For other people, it might be alcohol. For a lot of people in our community, it's food,
Yep.
which people do not really talk about food as an addictive substance, although it's highly addictive.
Right.
Um, so we're using these things as coping mechanisms, and there's no judgment, right? Because whether you use drugs or food or alcohol or even porn,
Or
you know,
Netflix.
Netflix, right? That's a very good one because
Yeah.
that won't fly under the radar.
Yeah.
Like we are numbing. Even one thing I've noticed is like there's certain people that don't feel comfortable just being in the car with themselves, no music, just with their own thoughts.
Yep.
So we even use music, right?
Mhm.
So we have to identify that we're using these things as coping mechanisms and then begin that process of figuring out like what's the underlying issue so we can resolve it,
Yep.
and because it's one of the biggest issues I see, and it goes unnoticed because even if you smoke weed, people, they just think it's recreational, but you do it every day or you're always high.
Yep.
Like, you're running from something.
Yep. And that's where you tinker too with, what's acceptable by society. I mean,
Hmm.
I think, some people may disagree with me on this, but have a lot of personal experience with it. I do think that as humans, addictions or addictive tendencies are something that we're all prone to. And it just, like, what we get addicted to is just more or less accepted as the norm or by
Hmm.
society. If you're always on your phone and you're addicted to playing video games, it's more acceptable than me, going downtown and shooting heroin, because it's much more dangerous to do that, but it's still the same thing. And you mentioned food addiction, and that's also something that I really struggled with, throughout my 20s. And, as part of a transition here into kind of my physical transformation, that's what was one of my motivations. Is as soon as I did start to get sober and get off of these chemicals, substances, I noticed myself turning to other things,
Mm.
especially food. Food's one of the hardest, in my opinion, because I've dealt with it just like you, with helping other people with emotional eating and addictive eating and late night snacking. And it's one of the hardest things to break, because it's not like you can just fast for the rest of your life. Like, you have to
Hmm.
eat for survival. So how do you find that balance between I'm in control versus the food is in control?
Yeah. It is a major challenge. Just like you said, you can't with these other substances. You could say, okay, I'm not going to drink anymore. I'm not going to smoke anymore. but you can't say I'm not going to eat anymore. And so
Right.
finding, finding that, building that relationship, and then also, and this goes back to the system that conditioned us, but we've been conditioned to eat for taste versus health, or out of necessity. So
Yeah.
we eat as frequently as we can,
Hmm.
as tasty a food as we can, almost purely for pleasure, or for a coping mechanism, eh, and throwing nutrition and stuff completely out the window. And one of the reasons why I want to emphasize, like, that whole system we go through, the school system, is because they reinforce those poor eating choices. So
Yeah.
now when you go to look for a different option outside of your current coping mechanism that you really don't want to deal with anymore, you slip into food that you just don't know it. Because
Yeah.
a lot of the sugar, for example, I learned, I mean, oh my God, like decades ago, that sugar would light up the same portions of the brain as if you were doing like cocaine.
Yep.
So it's like they're just categorized differently, and one is a food product, and
Yeah.
one is a hard drug, and one's bad and one's okay. But
Yeah.
it's like what your body
One's
doesn't.
legal and one's illegal and one's legal. Yeah,
Yeah.
people are gonna watch this episode and be like, "What are they talking about?" Because we're gonna start going on these rants. But yeah, that's what it comes down to. Like, you and I are on the same page, because this is what really fires me up is you're talking about the foods that we're conditioned to seek out and eat. It's all about making money. I have
Mm.
never met a single person to this day. If there's somebody who sees this episode and this is you, please reach out to me. Reach out to Chris. We both would love to interview you. I've never met a person who's addicted to eating chicken or steak or steamed vegetables. They're like, oh man, I've had a bad day. I'm going to go binge eat 5 heads of broccoli, right? No, it's those processed foods that are intentionally designed to give us that same chemical neurological response that every other addictive thing
Mm.
produces.
Hmm. It's funny because when I was younger, I grew up in not the greatest neighborhood, from probably fourth grade to like 10th grade. And my friends, people I was meeting, we would talk about the people that were doing the drugs.
Mhm.
And they had all these different terms for them: dopamine, butterhead, and all these different terms, crackhead, and all this stuff. And I never knew where the terms came from, because I was young. I was like maybe, um, I don't know, what's that, like 9, 10,
Mhm.
when I'm really being introduced to these things. I only recently learned that dopamine comes from dopamine. They were looking for a dopamine hit.
Mhm. Yep.
That's what it was all about. So then now I'm thinking, wait a minute, you get a dopamine hit from Facebook clicks.
You do.
Like,
Yeah,
if
you
someone
do.
likes your post, it gives you a little dopamine hit.
Yep.
That's what those tech guys were talking about when they designed the algorithm for Facebook and these different platforms. And I'm like, if that's the case, if that's what everybody is chasing, that dopamine hit, we are in a major problem now,
Yep.
especially with social media.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, social
So,
media is it I mean, like, yeah, we could go down a rabbit trail of that, but yeah, social media, they've got psychologists on their payroll that is their number one job. How do we get people to stay on the platform for longer? And it's laughable
mhm,
because you and I are both on social media, like, we make YouTube video content and we play those games, but it's the motivation behind it too, right? Like, your motivation, my motivation is to, yes, let's use some of these known psychological triggers that get people to want to click and want to watch, but wrapped within that packaging is something that's actually going to better your life and make you
mhm,
better, versus just how can we extract as much money and time out of you for our own personal profit.
exactly. And that's the I when it comes to social media, when it comes to cell phones, when it comes to cars, right? These are just tools. These are just tools that an individual can use to get a job done. What they do with those tools, just like a pistol, what you choose to do with it, that's what that's on you. A
Yeah.
pistol is just a tool. You can use it to hurt someone, you could use it to protect somebody. It's up to you how you use it. And so I think that it's easy for us to be like, you know what, I really, because I don't like Facebook.
I
I'm
hate
sure I
Facebook.
right, like I'm sure you're on the same page. And you would think, well, Chris, that's kind of like a moral dilemma then. Like you don't like Facebook, you know why you don't like Facebook, but you have one of your biggest platform is Facebook, and it's just like I got to use the tool because that's where the people are, you
Yep.
know? Yeah.
Yep.
So how did you get to a place where how did you told us about over a decade ago where you were, and we see where you are today. That's a very big gap. How
Yeah.
did you begin to build that bridge and get where you are today? Like what happened?
Yeah. So the very succinct, oversimplified answer was that I came to faith, which gave me purpose and
Mm,
drive and a reason to become a better person and a contributing regular adult in society. When it comes to my overall health, I can tell you and your audience explicitly how I did what I did, just because if anybody out there wants to try it themselves, it worked for me. It's worked for a lot of people that I've coached, and I don't hide anything behind paywalls. I like sharing my experience because, again, I learned a lot of things by going through them and failing and finding
mhm,
out what worked. But so the last treatment facility I went to, so I went to a lot of rehabs, trying to get off of first pain medication and then, of course, heroin. Once they started, hammering down on that. The last treatment facility I went to was a faith based treatment facility, and it was a long term one, and I was there for 9 months in total. But
mm,
during the very first 3 months that I was there, as soon as my head started to clear a little bit from the drugs, I realized I took a look at myself and I was like, I don't like where my health is, right? I had just been using drugs for 10 to 12 years. I used to be an athlete, in college. I didn't eat healthy, but I at least used to look like I was healthy. I had all of the standard motivations to lose weight in the very beginning. I was still single. I wasn't married at the time. So, of course, I wanted to get a more attractive body. I wanted to be lean again. I didn't want to feel self conscious all of the time. I remember I would like sit in church and I could feel my stomach like hanging over my belt. And I would
mhm,
be like looking around, unable to pay attention to the sermon because it was like, I wonder who's looking and noticing that I'm overweight and what they're thinking about me.
mm,
Those were the kind of superficial motivations that I had in the beginning, and then it morphed more into, again, as I got more clarity and got sober, I realized that I was starting to replace the previous addiction with food
mm,
addictions, like, oh, I can't wait till I can eat that ice cream tonight because that's going to be so rewarding. Of course, the pleasure of it lasts all of 5 seconds, and then you feel guilty and shameful immediately afterwards. But yeah, I just really wanted to get as much control back over my own life as I could, because I had spent so many years out of control where other
mm,
things external of me were controlling me. And so this is how I did it. If this is useful to anyone. At first, I did what everyone has always told us to do to lose weight, right? I started eating less and exercising more. And I did this for about 3.5 weeks. And what ended up happening was about a week into it, I was hungry every second of every single day. And all I thought about was food, to the point
mm,
where I thought I might have a binge eating disorder because I would restrict so severely. And then I would break, my willpower would run out, and I would eat everything in sight. I was like, oh gosh, I'm getting worse, right?
mm,
I also exercise so much that I would try to go for a walk or a jog and my legs would start to cramp up because I simply was not getting enough nutrition into my body, because it's all about calories in versus calories out. That's what everybody was telling me.
yeah, that's it.
So once I got to that breaking point. I was like, all right, even if it is only about calories in versus calories out, and this is how it's supposed to be done, I can't do this for the rest of my life. I've hardly been able to do it for 3.5 weeks. I've got to find something else. Right. So what I did was I actually cut out, I went pretty hardcore because, I mean, if you can imagine an ex drug addict, I'm like all in, all out. So
Yeah.
I cut out all carbs entirely for 3 months. The only carbohydrates I ate was like maybe I'd have an apple or a banana like once every other day, and I'd eat vegetables. I wasn't worried about vegetables, but in terms of like processed foods, I ate zero processed foods for a solid 3 months. I focused primarily just on protein, so meats and vegetables. And I kind of stumbled into intermittent fasting, if you will.
Mm.
So I was in this faith based treatment program, and I was reading the New Testament at the time. And I kept coming across these passages where Jesus would say, when you fast, when you fast. And it made me start thinking, because it was like he wasn't saying when you used to fast in the past. It's like when you fast, but like, oh, wait a minute. I've never tried this before.
Mm.
So that whole experience itself was so much fun because we're talking about testing things on ourselves. I had no idea what to expect the first time. I literally just skipped breakfast. So I did like a 16 and 8 fast. And I was like, I have no idea what's going to happen. I've never skipped a meal in my life. Everybody says you need to eat 6 small meals a day or you're going to pass out and starve to death, right?
Yeah.
So I skipped breakfast and it was like, oh, that was actually pretty easy. So then the next day, I skipped breakfast and lunch and made it to dinner. And I was like, huh, that's actually pretty easy too. And so then I was like, I wonder how far I could push this, right? And I know you did a video on the snake diet, right? That like the really over the top guy who has the snake diet. That's
Yeah.
essentially what I did. I didn't have access to the internet or a smartphone or anything. I don't even think he was around at the time either. But that's essentially what I did to lose. So I ended up losing like 50 pounds in 2.5 months by doing two things. I did not eat any processed foods, and I would just fast for as long as I could until my willpower broke down. I would eat and then I'd fast again the next day for as long as I could. So there really was no system behind it, right? Like you and I wouldn't coach somebody, be like, all right, this is how you're going to do it. I want you to
Right.
fast until you can't anymore. Then I want you to eat, and then we're going to do that again. Like it's not a system, but it
Right.
worked. It worked because I essentially were hitting, in my mind, the two big needle movers that are really important when it comes to weight loss. It's not how much you eat. And this is where I differ, and you probably differ too, from a lot of other coaches, and they'll probably say that we're wrong. But to me, the how much you eat gets taken care of if you focus on the quality of food that you're eating and when you're
Mhm.
eating. The calorie
Mhm.
deficit, right, is going to be taken care of with the fasting. And if you're eating high quality food that's got good nutrition, you're not going to feel hungry all of the time, even when you are fasting. And so that's how I did it.
Yeah. Absolutely, man. I want to say that that might be the first time I've heard that protocol. You know,
Just do it till you can't anymore.
I genuinely, man, I've heard some pretty cool protocols, honestly. Like people who have come on, they're like, yeah, I did this and that. Someone had a stair step method that I really liked. But, at the end of the day, it works. It
Yeah.
works because you're doing the right thing more often than you're doing the wrong thing, with a major emphasis on eliminating the processed foods.
Yeah.
I have like the four major tenets, which this I like people to look at this as a prescription. It's
Yeah.
like you have a disease, whether it's obesity or diabetes. Here's a prescription to help you get better. Get away from meats, dairy products, processed foods, refined sugars.
Yeah.
The reason why I always put meat in there is not because I think meat is inherently bad or anything. The problem is that people don't source their meat well.
Right.
So they're eating like I mean, you go
Pepperoni
to McDonald's
sticks.
to get a chicken sandwich, like that's not meat.
That ain't meat.
you
Yeah.
know? you know?
Yeah.
So but yeah, I you just do the right thing more often than not. You don't have to be perfect when you do it, but you'll get those results. 50 pounds in 2.5 months is incredible. It's off the charts.
Yeah.
And people are going to want the similar benefit. It sounds like to me that what you did wasn't some crazy elaborate. It was simple. It was you made a decision
Yeah.
and you were consistent with that decision.
Correct. Yeah.
And you also did very specific things like taking the processed foods out of your diet.
That's the number one thing, man.
I was talking to a friend who comes from Africa,
Mhm.
and they were just talking about how when they moved from Africa, they gained all this weight. And
Mhm.
then when they go back home to visit for, a month or whatever, they lose all this
They
weight.
lose it. Yep.
Is it the continent? Is it what? Is it
Just the
does this is the
temperature.
temperature? Like, what is it? What's the processed foods, man?
Just the food.
Like,
Yeah.
a lot of our foods, Skittles and stuff, they're either banned or
Yep.
there is a warning label on them, like a Surgeon General warning. Hey, this is basically poison. Don't eat it.
Yeah. There's a lot of sugar in here, and sugar's a dose dependent poison. Yeah. Well, and it's crazy too, because they've been, I say they, the people in charge of giving us advice for how to lose weight and what we should be eating, and proper nutrition. They've been telling us the same thing since like 1950, 1960s, the same time that the obesity epidemic, you can go back and pinpoint this is when it
Mm,
started. So everybody's been counting calories and paying attention to how much they're eating, and yet the curve keeps going up and up, right? Obesity keeps going up. Type 2 diabetes is insane. And I think that's even worse than everything else now. Um,
mm.
and if you look at the timeline of everything, it follows perfectly with our increased consumption of highly processed foods, the shelf stable stuff that they've made so that our lives are easier and cheaper,
Right.
yet our life expectancy continues to decline as a result of it. It's insane.
Mhm.
It blows my mind.
Well, that is the reason why I cannot trust government entities,
Oh, jeez.
because if you do the research, because really all you got to do is open your eyes and think about your own personal experience. So I'm an 80s baby. I grew up in the era where they had the milk commercials, got
Yep.
milk,
Yep.
got beef. Um, they were pushing the breakfast agenda really hard, and the square meals and the food pyramid,
Yeah.
right? Like, it was all very popular during that time. They put it on the back of our cereal box. If you're in the hallway at school, they got the food pyramid up there. Eat next to phrases like eat healthy, eat smart, and all this other stuff. And then it's like you see what you're talking about, where the obesity is just. And I saw people going to the gym. I
Yep.
did. Like, they would tell us that, oh, we're just lazy and we're just fat. I saw people going to the gym. My stepmom, one of my stepmoms, she was dieting all the time. Slim
All the
Fast, tahini noni juice, Jenny Craig, like
time.
everything,
Yep.
and could not move that needle, man.
Nope.
So then what I realized was, okay, we are being given bad information. And then, of course, as an individual, you feel shame because you're like, they're telling you the reason you're obese is because you have no self-control. You're lazy, you won't exercise. So now you feel shame because you're trying, but you're not getting any success, and you feel like it's your fault,
Yep.
you know?
Yeah. Well, yeah. And then what gets me even more riled up, because I was a personal trainer for 3 years before I transitioned into doing what I do now. Because the people that I was seeing in the gym, personal training, like exercise isn't the answer. Like burning more
Mm,
calories isn't the answer. If you don't clean up the nutrition, the exercise ain't going to do anything. And what gets me riled up is I've seen so many coaches and personal trainers, they'll come back to a person after they give them their perfectly portioned meal plan, and this is the allotted calories based off of this calculated, it's super precise, right? Being sarcastic, sorry, that's how I am, cynical as all get out. You come back and be like, I'm following everything you're telling me, and I gained 2 pounds in the last month. You're like, oh
right.
well, you must not be tracking right. Oh, you must be sneaking food at night. you must not be reporting everything. And oh, it drives me nuts because you're not helping anybody. You're just making the problem worse
Yeah.
because nobody's looking at the underlying cause in the first place. Because to me,
Mhm.
the underlying cause, that was one of the, sorry, this is a side note, but it's probably important. When I first lost the weight, before I got any education about nutrition and started doing what I do now, a transition I went through was kind of a judgmental one where I saw all of these people who were overweight, and whether or not they were trying to lose weight, I don't know. But in my own mind, because of everything that has been told and taught to us, I just assumed, well, if they would just stop eating all the time, they'd be able to lose weight. If they just exercised a little bit of self control, they would just lose some weight. But now if you look at the statistics, it's, and I don't know what it is this year. I know what it was last year. It's almost 75% of the population, the US population, is overweight or obese. You cannot, there's not going to be anybody who's going to be able to convince me that 75% of our population has no self-control and
Right.
is simply overeating. The problem has to be way more systemic than that. And the
Hmm.
problem, as we've just said, it's the food that we're eating.
Yeah. Not only is the food poor, right, but they've removed the systems that we had in place that would help keep our nutrition balanced. Like nobody gardens anymore.
Yeah.
Like you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
When I was coming up, it was a old lady's hobby to
Yep.
garden, right? So not attractive. I'm the guy. I'm young. I don't want. That's not for me. Yeah. And so my parents didn't garden at all, but my grandparents did. So it wasn't that long ago, that we were gardening, but they have essentially eliminated that. And then
Mhm.
also I noticed like in California, because I was like, man, there's no fruit trees anywhere. All the trees are males.
Yeah.
There's all these male trees everywhere. And then I found out that there was, I don't know if it was a law or something passed in California where basically they trick people into thinking that fruit gnat, like the little gnats, the little
Yeah.
fruit flies,
Yeah.
were toxic. They were poisonous. I guess
Mhm.
similar to like a mosquito. I don't know. And so they convinced everybody to cut their fruit trees down.
Yeah. Because they can't make money if you grow your own food. I literally just posted this article on my community tab yesterday. One of these stupid sensational headlines that says, this was the headline: homegrown food produces 5 times greater carbon footprint than conventionally produced food. Yeah, it's insane. Like that's what I saw it and I laughed, and then I immediately got angry because I'm like you have, like, I want people to open their eyes and see. Like I like the actually what I said in this post is like, I'm afraid I'm becoming like a conspiracy theorist, right? Like I feel like everybody's out to just like control us. Like they want you sick. They want you to not grow your own food so
Hmm.
that they can make money off of you buying their highly, profitable commercial produce. It's insane. It blows my mind. And I feel like a conspiracy theorist because here I am sitting like telling you like who would believe that headline? But there are people that believe that headline.
They gotta. If the
Yeah.
news is saying it.
Yeah. Ugh.
I mean, look, I tell people all the time, Google has, they don't owe you anything. Google is just a company. It's not a government entity. We didn't elect Google officials. So when you go to Google and you're researching, you want to Google whatever, and it gives you some answer, you just assume the answer is right because you think, well, it's the biggest search engine and there's no bias, and you believe all these things that aren't true. No, there's 100% bias, and it's
Mhm.
simple to know because if I want my stuff to pop up before yours, all I gotta do is pay them $500 a month, and mine will
Yeah.
always pop up before yours.
Yep.
Like
Or produce 5 times more than mine does and it'll pop up because there's more of it.
exactly. So this is not some well balanced system that's designed for truth seeking, but this is the main way that people research now. It's literally just Google search, right?
Yeah.
And it's going to take you to Wikipedia, all these different websites that are just really like controlled
Yeah.
opposition. I don't know, like like they sound real good, but in reality, there's a lot of really bad information on there. So
Yeah.
what I like to deal in the realm of reality and outcomes, like
Yeah.
if you are teaching X information and you're promising a result, then whoever listens to this information should get the result. If they
Correct.
don't get the result, then something's wrong with the information,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And this is one of the reasons why I have an issue with a lot of the journals. If if a doctor has a study and this is real science and they present that science to this journal and the journal rejects it for political reasons because maybe one of the pharmaceutical companies
Yeah.
there's some type of relationship there, right? Then I can't trust journals anymore. Not to
Nope.
say that there's no good information in there, but it's like I think that we should be doing the research ourselves. Like
Correct.
just do it yourself,
Yep.
record it, and then if you could duplicate it, if somebody else can get the same result, you might be onto something.
Yes. Yeah. It brought us full circle to this is why you and I test things on ourselves. Like I, when was this? This was last October. I was, just getting into meeting a lot of people that were on about the carnivore diet, right? And I can go online and I can find 50% articles say carnivore diet produces amazing results. I can find 50% articles that say it's a terrible idea. It's going to destroy your heart, right?
Mhm.
I don't trust any of it because
Mhm.
they all have hidden agendas. You've got the big livestock that has articles being published, and you've got the big grain companies that have the opposite articles being published. So what did I do? I tried a carnivore diet for a month to see what happened. I wanted to know what it would do for me. Now, I'm not doing the carnivore diet anymore because it was a bit extreme, but it's like what you're saying, man. Like you got to test these things out for yourself. And so going
Mhm.
back to when I was counting and controlling my portions and eating less and moving more like everybody else was telling me to do, maybe that does work for some people, right? But it didn't work for me. So I
Mhm.
moved on to the next thing to find something that does work for me.
Mhm. I think it's important to, at the beginning, whatever kind of wellness journey you're going to approach, you want to figure out what's your intended outcome. You
Yep.
know, we call it a why. What is your why? What is it that you're looking to get from this? And then based on that, there's going to be a plethora of different options you can choose. So when it comes to the carnivore diet, I'm not against the carnivore diet, although people think I am. People think I'm a vegan. I've never said that. They put a lot of different labels on me. I'm like, no, I am a truth seeker.
Yep.
So if you're using the carnivore diet and it works for you, keep doing it,
Yeah.
right?
Good for
But
you.
what I have learned is that there's upper limits. So
Mhm.
if you're on the standard American diet and you go to the carnivore diet, guess what? Blood pressure is probably going to improve. Cholesterol is probably going to improve. If you have type 2 diabetes, there's a very good chance it might go away because you're moving from the standard American diet, which is the worst food you can consume, to something that's better. And if you do it right, I mean, really kind of like a whole food
Yep.
diet, right? If you're
Yep.
eating meat, yeah. So of course it's going to be better. Now, what I've noticed is when you're doing it for weight loss, let's say maybe like more of a ketogenic type thing, then there's a limit. Like your weight loss eventually plateaus. And a lot of people do it for weight loss. Like
Yep.
as we already know, that's what draws a lot of people in is the weight loss. And
Mhm.
so I want to look for a dietary strategy that is more complete because I
Correct.
am very big on holistic wellness. So I'm fine with keto. I'm fine with carnivore. You do it. It works for you. When and or if it reaches a plateau or you're not able to get what you want from it, then come on over and I'll teach you what I'm doing. Because I haven't
Yeah.
hit the ceiling yet. Like
Right.
my health just keeps improving. And I people tell me I look 10 years younger than I look. Like, I mean, I get carded going places like, I don't know, like it seems like things are working well for me. So um what are you currently doing as far as your dietary strategy? Like, what are you currently doing? Have you figured it out? You still doing a lot of experimentation? Where are you at with that?
I do still experiment with things, but merely because I want to report back to others, like, this is what you might experience if you try this yourself. one note too, I mean, I think you and I are probably in a very similar place. Like what blows my mind too is, carnivores, vegans, keto diet, Mediterranean diet, any diet out there that actually has any proven results, anecdotal or research, they all have the same thing in common, which is what we've already talked about. They pretty much eliminate processed foods. Like, I
Hmm.
don't know any good diet out there that's like, you can eat just Doritos and McDonald's as long as you control your portions, you're going to feel amazing. Like, you show me that, I
Right.
might test that one out just so I can see what that's like. But yeah, what my life looks like today, like once you start intermittent fasting, what it did for me was, this is what I believe it did for me. It reset the hormones that I needed reset. So my
Mm,
insulin, I likely had insulin resistance when I was overweight. I likely had leptin resistance. So I was feeling hungry all of the time, even after I ate large meals. But once I started using intermittent fasting more systematically, beyond the 2.5 months where I was just like, let's see how long I can fast for and see what happens. Um, like, there are not many days where I wake up and actually feel physiologically hungry until about 1 or 2 p.m. So most days I eat usually between like a 6 to 8 hour window. And it's not like I'm grazing and snacking all throughout that time because I'm not
mm,
constantly hungry. I'll eat a meal for lunch, I'll eat a meal for dinner, and that's it on a normal day. Every
mm,
once in a while, like after the holidays or a vacation where I just go buck wild, I'll throw in like a 48 to 72 hour fast just to kind of reset my body.
mm,
And then in terms of the quality of food that I eat, for the first 3 years, I was pretty strict with it. Like, legitimately, like, was terrified of processed foods and kind of scared of carbohydrates as well. But for the last 7 years, like, I have a lot more freedom and flexibility with what I eat. I'd say, like, if I had to put numbers on it, it's like 80% of the food that I eat is real whole food, like unprocessed, unpackaged food. And of course,
mm,
I eat processed packaged food, but it's very minimal. It's about
mm.
20% of my diet.
Yeah. That's actually kind of where I landed too. So um, I I don't really look at what I did as like extreme because I was always looking for balance and everything. But I started off, doing very long fasts,
Mhm.
and then when I came off my fasting, I realized I can't go back to eating the food I was eating before it, because it's going to make me sick.
Yeah.
And I adopted just a whole food plant based diet, really alkaline foods, like natural foods.
Yeah.
And I was making everything from scratch. I wasn't doing any condominiums. So I guess that might be the extreme part. Like, if I was gonna have ketchup, I made ketchup myself.
Yeah.
And yeah, I did that for about 5 to 8 months, and then
Nice.
eventually I started weaning myself back into having some processed foods and things of that nature. More like when I would go out of the house, if
Yep.
I'm like on vacation or going out with my friends,
Go
you
out to
know,
eat. Don't have to
going out
stress
to
out
eat.
about it. Yeah.
Right,
Exactly.
exactly. So that balance, I think, is important because, like I mentioned before, look at what you do early on as like a prescription. It's like you're going to do this thing, get a result, and then you're going to normalize.
Yep.
Because people think, oh, I got to stop doing this forever. Not
Yeah.
necessarily, but you can't do it right now, though. Like,
Right.
it's not going to be good for you right now.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask, what was the longest fast you did?
The longest I ever fasted was about 9.5 days. And it was one of
Okay.
those times where I was like, oh man, I wish I had have kept going. Um,
Mm,
but yeah, it's in the back of my mind at some point to do, probably first a 2 week fast, and then before I die, I want to do a 30-day fast, at least to say that I've done it. And
mm,
this is going to sound like such a cop out, but the reason I haven't done it up until this point is because typically around the like 72-hour mark, I have a tough time focusing. It's
mm,
been like if you, especially like when you get down to the body weight that I'm at, so I've literally sat around between 10 to 12% body fat for the last 7 years. So I
Hmm.
don't have a lot to tap into. I know that I can fast for 30 days and I'll be fine. I'm not going to die. But
Correct.
the ketosis that I get into, I can't get a lot of other stuff done. And
Hmm.
so that's my cop out. It's like
Yeah.
I haven't done a 2 week fast because I won't be getting a whole lot of other stuff done
Yeah.
in terms of work and productivity because I won't have a ton of energy likely.
Hmm. No, I listen, man. I understand. Um, we live in a modern world. Like we have to work. We gotta be productive. What there is a 90-day period of time that I'm still looking to find for myself. So I
Yeah.
know exactly where you're at. Like I have a goal. I'm like I'm gonna take 3 months. I'm gonna work on. I want to work on my eyes. I want to work on my physical fitness. There's things that I want to work that I personally want to work on because I know me. I know how I am. The way that I was able to achieve what I have achieved is because I was laser focused and I was
Yeah.
not distracted. But now by building this brand
Yeah.
and really having to be available pretty much on a daily basis, I've kind of pigeonholed myself a little bit. So I'm like, well, I'm going to get my brand to a place. I'm gonna have people basically running it for me, and then I'm gonna dip out for like 3 months and do my
Yep.
thing.
Yeah. Go
Um,
do a dark retreat. That's something that I've wanted to try too, man. The dark retreat. It
mhm.
sounds horrible. I can't imagine going to the bathroom in the dark, but it sounds fun. I got to test that out myself.
Yeah. I actually might have something that would be beneficial for you as far as like energy, clarity of mind, focus through fasting. There's a supplement that I'm sure you're probably open to it because you seem to be like an
Yeah.
experimental type.
I'll test
But
anything.
yeah, there's a supplement that we suggest that people absolutely love.
Mhm.
And essentially, what it does is it tends to give them more energy. I mean, they'll be fasting and they'll like send us a picture of their room, and we're like,
Yeah.
okay. They're like, guys, I've been meaning to clean my room for the past 2 months. Like, I just finished cleaning my room. You know,
Yeah.
it's essentially a turmeric. It's a turmeric supplement. It's got some other things, vanilla bean, and it's got some really good. It's non-GMO. It's all that
Yeah.
stuff. It
Yeah.
checks all those boxes. But the secret sauce is the way it is formulated.
Yeah.
The doctor that formulates them uses ancient technology to formulate the products, and she doesn't teach. She doesn't talk a lot about it. It's patented, but that's what makes it special. You look at the ingredients and you're like, okay, I mean, they're good ingredients, but it's like, how are they giving you these results? And the secret sauce is really, how she formulates them. So I'll hook you up with that. It's called Zero In.
Yeah. No,
Um,
I'm gonna test that out as soon as you send that to me. I'm good to go for it.
yeah, yeah. I think you're really gonna like it though.
Yeah.
So what are some of the experiences that you've had with interacting with other people? So you did your thing, you lost 50 pounds in 2.5 months. You got away from the drugs. You found faith,
Mhm.
right? Like a spiritual purpose. So you found a purpose for yourself, and then through that, how did you decide that you wanted to help other people? And then talk a little bit about that experience of helping others.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I kind of, I'd like to say I woke up one day and God just put the idea in my head and was like, that's what I'm going to do. This is brilliant. But it was more of a process, right? It's like, okay, I'm learning all of this stuff in order to improve my own health and my own life. Once you get to a certain level, like you're kind of explaining where you're at, where you're like, I've got things pretty, well dialed in for myself. Now what, right? It's kind of like, now I'm getting a little bored. What do I do now? Well, now the next obvious step to me was to start helping people who are in the same place that I was 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Um, and so that's been kind of the path that I've been on for the last 6 or 7 years now. And I
Mhm.
don't know if you asked this, but this was a thought that popped into my head. You know, kind of like one of the biggest things that I've noticed now over the last 6 or 7 years that trips people up the most. And this will be something that um, if this resonates with one of your listeners, that's a good thing. If it rubs you the wrong way, that's also a good thing because it's likely an indication that this is what's going on. The biggest thing that I've seen that trips people up is we can all admit it's not a lack of knowledge. We all know deep down inherently what we need to do. It's just that lack of commitment and the decision to I might steal that from you, the prescription
Mm,
terminology. It's like if you really want to change, you have to make the decision to do whatever it takes to get better, right?
mm,
Knowing full well that your prescription might be extreme for the next, 3 to 12 months. It's not going to be that way for the rest of your life. We're constantly evolving. It's going to be hard and it'll probably suck in the beginning, but the harder it is and the more that it sucks in the beginning means the easier it's going to be after you get through that first phase. And
hmm.
so what trips a lot of people up is just that lack of like just making a decision to do whatever is necessary to get yourself better and
Hmm.
then worry about the next step after you've taken care of the first one.
Yep. You are 100. I've done entire talks on this topic of just we are extremely powerful.
Mm.
I know that in modern society, they try to strip us of our power. They try to make us feel insignificant. They do all these things to just make you feel like you're a speck of dust in an infinite galaxy and all that stuff. But the but the reality is you are very special and you have a lot of ability and you're very powerful. So understanding that is important because then once you know how powerful you are, you know that you can do anything.
You can.
There's
You
a
really can.
no, literally there was a time when the iPhone didn't exist, only in someone's mind. And then they extracted the iPhone from their mind into the physical realm. Like, what do you think that is? You know? So it's important to understand that what we're looking to do and achieve, it's not even building an iPhone. It's a basic fundamental right as a human being to be healthy.
Yep.
No other creature in this world is sick, obese, diabetes, cancer. None of the other creatures, just us
Yeah.
or the ones that we keep either in
Yeah.
captivity or
Pets,
domesticate.
the dogs, the poor beagles that have diabetes.
Right. Yeah. Glaucoma and all this other stuff. So once you decide that you want to reclaim your birthright, which is your health and wellness, you cannot lose. You're going to do the right thing more often than you do the wrong thing. And you're just going to keep moving forward and you will reach those outcomes.
Yeah.
And I think this is why people like you and me are important because we showcase that through our work and through our channel. And then it's like, oh, well, if this person did it or if this person had this outcome, I can too,
Yep.
you know? So,
Yeah. I mean, if I can come out of, full blown heroin addict, literally like thousands of dollars in debt because I'm robbing people, right? Used to rob Kmart's before Kmart disappeared entirely,
so
right?
you're the reason Kmart went out of business.
I'm the only reason Kmart went out of business. To the person that I am today, right? Like that's the thing, that's the key too. And that's why I love physical fitness and nutrition and health too, is what you learn by going through it is applicable to every other circumstance in your life. It's just like
Mm,
you said, once you prove to yourself that you are capable of this one thing, now oh, I can do that too. I can do this too. I've done
mhm.
way harder than that before. Let me try this. Like we're capable of so much more than we give ourselves credit for. But the only way that you find out that you truly are that powerful and capable of doing it is by doing it.
Gotta take that leap, man.
You got to do it.
Yeah. One of the things that I learned early from fasting was it was an empowering process.
It is.
You know, when we talk about level of difficulty, like fasting for us as modern people is like really, really up there.
Yeah,
You
it
know,
seems weird because everybody else is eating all the time.
yeah. And like I have worked with people who have run Fortune 500 companies. We're talking well ex athletes. I mean, we're talking about people who have been at peak levels in their career, or even amongst their peers. Just these are creme de la creme,
Yeah.
and they struggle with fasting.
Yep.
So if you can fast for a extended period of time, that means something.
It
That
does.
that's saying something.
Yeah. It builds that momentum and that motivation and that sense of accomplishment. It's like if you're not a reader, for example, and you set the goal, I'm going to read a book in the next 30 days, you're going to feel pretty empowered if at the end of 30 days you've read that book. And what that's
Mm,
going to do is build momentum. Be like, okay, I'm going to try something a little bit harder now. And fasting not only gives you that empowerment, like you're saying, but it also gives you a crap ton of physical results as well, which is also incredibly motivating. So, yeah, like
right.
if somebody's struggling to lose weight or get healthier, it's a lot harder to focus on eliminating processed foods. Like, I won't lie, like that's tough because it takes a lot more work. It's really easy just instead to focus on the clock and be like, I'm not going to eat from 8 p.m. until 12 p.m. tomorrow. And you're going to
Hmm.
do that. You're going to get some pretty good results in the beginning, and it's just going to motivate you to keep doing more.
Hmm. Yeah. It's kind of like the whole Jordan Peterson idea, clean your room.
Yeah.
It's like start off small, start off with simple things, just every day, just make your bed every
Yeah.
day. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, people don't, I don't think they see the value, because we live in this, my elders used to call us the microwave generation. We want everything right now,
Right now.
you
Yep.
know?
Yesterday.
So
I want it yesterday.
right. So we want everything before we've actually really worked for it, and
Yeah.
that's how we've been conditioned, right? And that's how they're making us a weak population of people. I mean, I was thinking about the remote control. So my grandfather, when he came up, right, he came up, there were no TVs, and then eventually you got the TVs, and you had the color TVs and all this stuff. When he saw that they created these remote controls, he was upset. He was like, they're just making us lazy. They're making us, And I'm like 5 or 6. I'm like, yo, this dude is tripping. Like, what's wrong with a remote control? But it's the convenience,
Yeah.
right? It's so convenient. And so I always remembered that. And as I looked at how technology made life more convenient, I saw how people got weaker,
Yep.
more sensitive, more unhealthy, etc.
More
So,
entitled.
oh,
Well, you and I, we're like the same age, right? And you made me think of this. It's like, dude, when I was in high school, I had to buy CDs to listen to my favorite song, right?
hmm,
Like Blink 182 would come out with a new CD. I just wanted one song, but I had to buy the whole CD, right?
yeah,
And it was like this huge thing. Napster came along first and then allowed us to like download things illegally. But now I could literally listen to any song ever right now just by going to Spotify or
right,
YouTube. It's
hmm,
insane.
yeah, yeah. We have to. I would say we have to go out of our way to reinstate that friction in our lives that we have been trying to eliminate through technology and stuff. Like, you don't want frictionless relationships, and you don't want frictionless environments, and you don't want frictionless experiences, because the friction is what makes it fun. It's almost like, what's an adrenaline rush without the adrenaline?
Yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you want friction. I use this example too. I have this segment I do. It's called AHA After Dark. But when it comes to relations, if you're having sex with somebody and there's no friction, it's not good sex.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So if we can understand that concept, you need that resistance, because that's what's going to help stimulate, and that's what's going to help grow. Like, you don't want to be complacent.
Yep. There's no growth without coming out of your current comfort zone, you know? And I mean, you want to like absolutely exponentially get out of your comfort zone and you're currently in the habit of eating all throughout the day, skip one meal. It's not tough. You're going to you could shoot me or Chris a message after you do it, be like, "Oh, you were right. It was actually way easier than I thought it was." Yeah.
Yeah.
But you're stepping out of your own comfort zone, and that's what creates the growth and the accomplishment.
Hmm. Do you happen to have a story, maybe about a client that you like to tell or share? Maybe some outcomes that people have gotten from working with you?
Yeah, sure. There's a couple that popped immediately into my head. Of course, like the absolute success stories are the ones that pop into my head. But there was one guy. I still work with him today, but he had been trying to lose weight for 5 years. He's 2 years older than me, and he had just had his first child. And
Mm,
so he really wanted to prioritize his health. But he had slowly let the weight creep up as often happens for most of us, right? So he's about 40 years old, 6'1", because everybody I work with likes to keep me humbled. Everybody I work with is like 6 foot taller more. I'm 5'6", just to remind me every single day that I'm nothing. But 255 pounds when we started working together. And what I had him do was exactly what I explained to you. It's like, all right, we're just going to go all in for the first 30 days. All I want you to focus on is 16 and 8 intermittent fasting, which if you're listening and you're not familiar with intermittent fasting, it just means you're eating lunch and dinner. You're not eating breakfast. For most people, that's the easiest way to do 16 and 8, and no processed foods. So you
mm,
you alluded to the condiments before. Even when it comes to condiments, no condiments, because most of them have corn syrup, and we're trying to reduce sugar during this 30-day really hard reset. And
mm,
in that first 30 days, just doing 16 and 8 fasting and eliminating processed foods, he lost, I think, 18 pounds. And
mm.
then over the course of the next 2 months, we reintroduced, some of the condiments, some processed foods, but we started doing rolling 48-hour fasts. So actually, they weren't rolling. I had him do two 48-hour fasts per week.
Per
So
weekend.
he would fast from Sunday night till Tuesday, and then Wednesday night till Friday. So he would do two 48-hour fasts. His other days were 16 and 8s, because once you get used to 16 and 8, you don't eat breakfast. That's
Yeah,
just how it is. And
that's how it
he
is.
dropped below 200 pounds in 3 months.
Nice.
So that would be my prescription. And I don't see that happen with every client that I coach, simply because they it goes back to what I said before. Like, this sounds harsh, but when you've been doing it for as long as you and I have been doing, it's the truth. And sometimes people just need to hear the truth. The people who don't get the results like that, it's not because it doesn't work for them, it's because they don't do it.
It's because they don't do it.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I mean, you don't have to get results as quickly as that. Like, you could take it slow and steady. That's fine if that works better for your personality. But if you want to lose 60 pounds in the next 3 months, that's what I would do. Spend the next 4 weeks really getting rid of the food that is causing the inflammation and the disease in your body. And then just fast until you get to the weight that you want to be at. And then
Mm.
figure out the next step after that.
Yeah. Yeah, man, you got it. That's the frustrating part for me. I'll say that I can only do so much. Like everything that I tell people to do, I've already done. So
Yep.
I'm not going to tell you to do something that I'm not doing or I'm not willing to do. And that's the only way I could teach on it, because I have that personal experience. But it's like I can't do it for you. I wish I could. Like if
Yeah.
you could pay me to just do it for you, I would be so
What?
rich. I'd be
Oh
so
yeah. I've told people that, man. Like, if I had drones that could fly to your house and deliver an electrical shock when you eat something that you said you weren't going to, or if I had a magic pill that you could just take, like, I wouldn't, like, everybody'd be
yeah,
doing it. But yeah, it was
everybody.
probably like and I was a real, again, slow learner, learn things the hard way. It was probably year 3 of doing this where I finally got to the point where I was able to, like, explicitly tell the people that I was working with. I've gotten to the point where I recognize I tend to care more about your success and your health than you do. And
Hmm.
now I'm intentionally going to care one step less, right?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
do care. I do care. But just like you said, like, nobody can do the work for you. That's what a coach is. They're just a guide. We've
Hmm.
gone through it ourselves. We can give you the best practices. We can give you all the tips and the tricks and the hacks. But if you don't do them, the results aren't coming.
They're not coming.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really it really hurts me, man. Like when people are in the group, they'll be in the group for 4 years, 5 years and they're in the same place.
Yep.
And I think people think, oh, as long as I'm around this energy or this, I'm doing it. And it's like, no, there's a distinct difference. Yeah,
Yeah.
seriously. Um, I wanted to ask, because you said you did personal training.
Hmm.
So we're talking about this guy. He lost 18 pounds in a month.
Hmm.
Traditionally speaking, how much weight would people lose with that calories in, calories out? Like, what was a good amount of weight to lose with like more traditional methods?
Yeah, back when I got certified as a personal trainer, and even through the first certification that I went through for nutritional coaching, it's the standard stuff that Google will tell you. You want to lose somewhere between half a pound to 2 pounds per week, right?
Wow.
In order to make it steady and sustainable, right? The problem is, and what I found with myself and the other people that I was coaching is, yeah, like you'll lose like that first 10 to 15 pounds. It takes a while, takes a couple of months, but then you hit that wall that I hit really quickly where you're hungry all the time and you're fighting against cravings to not eat. You're allotted these small portions. And yeah, it just blew my mind. And for what it's worth to the listeners, if they've never heard of Dr. Jason Fung, his books will totally open your mind because he was the one who really started breaking me out of I call it the matrix of calories
Mm,
in, calories out, where it's not only that like calories, like forget about calories, like it's not even that, it's like the idea that you need to lose weight slow and steady is not the truth.
right.
You can, if that's what you want to do. And if that works best for you, then
Mm,
do it. But you don't have to. Because I
mm,
can tell you, like, I can literally come back from like a 7-day vacation, 6 pounds heavier than I was before. And you're telling
mm.
me I need to spend the next 6 weeks losing that 6 pounds that I just gained in 7 days. I'm going to be like, this is nonsense. I'm going to lose that 6 pounds in 2 days and I'll be right back where I was, like,
Exactly.
yeah, it's just dogma and it's just not true.
Yeah. It's funny. I don't know, for whatever reason, this made me think. So I did a challenge for myself. I haven't even released it yet because I didn't really complete it, just life and stuff. But I started a challenge to lose 10 pounds without fasting.
Okay.
That was
Oh,
my
yeah, that'll be a long video. You'll be filming that
man,
one for 10 weeks.
bro. Like yes, it was taking so long, and then a lot of stuff happened. It was at the end of the year. Um, I got down. I think I ultimately lost 8 pounds,
Yeah.
like within the first, let's say, a couple of months. But I couldn't, that other 2 pounds. And I'm like, man, come on, bro. Like, I just need these other 2 pounds so I can finish this
I
video.
need to make the video.
Oh my goodness. So, and I have a new supplement that I want to try. It's for weight loss and all this stuff. And I'm waiting because I'm like, I've just been sitting at that 2 pounds.
But
So,
dude, all right. This is an idea. I would go ahead and make that video, and that's the kind of big finale. It's like, dude, I've
yeah,
been trying and I hit a plateau after 8 pounds. And
yeah,
then and here's what I would do too. I'd be like, and then I fasted for 24 hours and lost 2 pounds.
right.
The
That,
end. Got the 10
yeah,
pounds done.
yeah. That's exactly what I was just thinking about. Like,
Yeah.
just I'm gonna just go ahead and end it. But
Yeah.
um, yeah. So the traditional method, you know, obviously we've seen it work for people, but it's extremely difficult. Man, when I
Tedious.
meet people, when I meet people that have lost 50 or 100 pounds the traditional way, my hat goes off to
Yeah.
them because
Yep.
that is hard.
Yep.
You know,
It
you are
is.
special. You're a David Goggins type person. That's what that is.
Yep.
Um, I think Jason Fung is an excellent resource for helping people transition from that matrix programming into what reality is, because he is a medical doctor. He's got a clinic, and like he backs what he says through science, which is
Yep.
what everybody, you know people
Yeah,
don't
they want.
understand it, but that's what they want to hear it, right?
Yeah.
So he's an amazing resource. As a matter of fact, I was just thinking, man, I really should reach out to him to have him on the show one day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been thinking about it for years,
Yeah,
but
do it. Yeah, he's cool. He's so cool. I hope he never sees this. Well, no, I hope he does see it. One of the reasons I was so drawn to him, if you've never watched Dr. Jason Fung, which, by the way, let me say this first too. If you've never heard of him, read his book, The Obesity Code, because that's the book that will, first and foremost, kind of open your mind up to the ideas. Like, it's not the calories, it's the hormones, and this is what you need to do to affect your hormones, because that's what's controlling your body weight and your health.
mm,
But the reason I love Jason Fung is because he's so nerdy. Like, you just talk to, when he talks, he's just like so matter of fact and nerdy. He's
yeah,
just a likable dude. And
yeah,
he, like, nothing phases him. He gets so much hatred from all of, the bro science, the calories in, calories out, but like, he knows he's right and it
hmm
doesn't phase him.
hmm
But yeah, if you
yeah,
have him on the show, let me know, man. I would love a connection with him. He's been one of my favorites for like 6 years.
yeah, yeah. Jason, I've been ever since I got in the game. I've been telling people, hey, if you wanna understand the science behind this, the way that you claim, go talk to Jason, go listen to his content.
Yeah.
Because my thing has always been like, let me just show you the outcomes.
Yeah.
Like let's I want to work with people who are like genuinely looking to get, because most people when they're like, oh, you this is wrong, they just want to argue. They're
Yep.
not looking, they don't want to change, they don't want to help anybody, they just want to argue, and I'm not going to argue. But it's weird that somebody like Jason Fung, who's been doing it as long as he's been doing it, who's got the science, who's got the degrees, still gets all of this pushback. Like,
Yeah.
it just goes to show you, you can never please people,
Nope.
you know? And so I don't.
Yeah.
Somebody was asking, because I talk a lot about hydration. And I think in this video, I was talking about how loose skin, because loose skin is a major issue. I'm sure you've heard this.
Yeah.
It's for a lot of people. They very scared of loose skin. And the traditional methods are surgery. Everybody is, hey, you're going to get loose skin, surgery. Well, I learned through autophagy and proper hydration of the body,
Mhm.
you can eliminate the majority of your loose skin to the point where it's either an inconsequential or non-existent or so minimal, yeah, it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
And I was talking about how I came to learn this information, like about hydrating, the importance of hydrating your cells. And they're like, cite your sources.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, but the thing when it comes to citing your sources, and this is why I joke too about the research, because a lot of my videos I do a lot of research for, and I will put, research publications up there. But for
Hmm.
every publication that I can find that says you should drink half your body weight in ounces every day. So if you're 200 pounds, you should drink 100 ounces a day. I can find just as many articles that say you should drink twice as much.
Mm,
The research doesn't mean anything in the end. Like, yes, it can guide and direct your behaviors, but it all comes back to testing it out yourself. And I want to say this too, if that is a big sticking point with a lot of people that you talk about. Now, I know I only lost 50 pounds, so we're not talking like 100 to 200 pounds. But remember, I lost 50 pounds in 2.5 months, which is
mm,
really, really quickly. I
mm-hmm,
should have extra skin, right?
mm-hmm.
I
Yes.
don't. I do not even have like a flap of skin that I can grab on my belly. Like,
Mm,
I've got no extra excess loose skin. And I do. People have asked me that before. It's like, how did you lose weight so quickly and not have extra skin? And that's the only answer that I can logically, I don't have proof of it, but that's the only logical answer I have, is that because of fasting and the autophagy, I think my body took that skin, was like, we don't need this anymore. Let's break it down and use it for something else.
yeah. So now you have two people from two different cultures, two different backgrounds. Our wellness journeys were completely different, and we're having the same results. And
Yeah.
we're both coming to the same conclusion. I mean, if me personally, I'm a very logical person.
Mhm.
Like, we have no agenda. I literally am meeting you for the first time today.
Right.
I saw your content. I said, okay, I think you resonate with my community, but that's about it. Like, we're not pushing some product or something. Like, fasting is free.
It
So,
is. That's what blows my mind. Is like, I always tell people, it's like, I don't actually want to do much coaching anymore. So like, I'm not pushing coaching. Like, what I actually find passion in now is, like I said, creating content in a
mm,
in a way that can actually get people to like I said, open their eyes and see the truth. Like that's what drives me is there's so much misinformation and so many lies out there. And that's why I
Mm.
think you and I connect so well. It's like, we just want to tell people the truth. Try it yourself. Prove me wrong. Like I'll be happy if you prove me wrong because then I'll go back to the drawing board and test something else out. But chances are you're going to prove us right. That sounds really arrogant. I didn't mean it to sound like that. I just want you to try it. I just want you to do it.
Just
Just
do
want
it.
you to
Yeah.
get healthy, man.
Yeah. Yeah, man. This has been a very enlightening conversation. I really appreciate the different perspective that you brought, and just hearing about your experience. And then, of course, for me, like when I started like when I envisioned the brand and what I wanted to see happen, it was I wanted to see people get healthy, and then I wanted to see people help other people.
Yeah.
Like that was because I know that I can't do it all. You know what I
Yep.
mean? One of the reasons why I opened up my platform to other creators and coaches, people people think it's weird. They think
Yeah.
it's weird that I would allow someone else to come on and either talk about product services or their methodology when I have my own product services and methodology. I'm like, man, there's millions of people who are sick. I can't help millions of people. I
Mhm.
can't coach millions of people individually.
Yeah.
And my method may not resonate with you as much as, Justin's method or somebody else's. So of course, come on, share, and if you can help a handful of people in my community, that makes me happy.
Yeah.
That said, how can people find you? What platforms are you on? And is there anything specific you'd like to send people to, a landing page, a guide, or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, and yeah, and just to reiterate what you were just saying now is that's very similar to what I do too. Is I bring on other nutritionists, other coaches, and interview them as well. And I'm like, hey, I want to bring you on. You can pitch your products because again, it's all the same mission. It's all the same goal. It's not to make money. It's to get people to see the truth and to get healthier. But if you want to see more of my content, learn more about me, YouTube, Justin Dorf. Same with Facebook, but main platform these days is YouTube. That's the one that I'm focusing on growing the most. That's the one I have the most fun with, just exposing different lies and misinformation from the media and other people. So if you're interested in that type of content, find me at Justin Dorf on YouTube.
Okay. Well, awesome, man. I appreciate it. Listen, I when I very first started down this, it wasn't even the wellness road. I actually started off learning about ancient technology, which is one of my favorite topics, if not my
That's
favorite topic.
that's cool.
Ancient tech. Ooh, I love it. Because they talk about the iPhone like it's the pinnacle, and it's not like. Anyway, I'm not going to get into it, but you learn about this whole conspiracy theory term, right? And then you learn that the CIA coined it and all of that. But I've essentially shifted gears, and I'm like, you know what? I'm a truth seeker.
Yep.
Like, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. A lot of things you will probably categorize that way, but that's not true. There's a lot of really silly conspiracies out there that's
Yeah.
just there to, muck the water up.
Yeah.
I'm a truth seeker, and I
Yeah.
seek it in technology, health, wellness, finances, relationships across the board. And so, listen, go for it, man. Like keep developing and be that conspiracy theorist or whatever it is, because
That's what
that,
I am.
that's a good thing in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. This has been a lot of fun. I appreciate again you having me on here, and I'm glad I know you now.
absolutely. Hey, if you want me to come on your show, I'll come on your show.
I will.
And
Yeah.
There's a pastor that I actually have interviewed a couple times. I'm gonna send you the interview because I think that you guys might have a good conversation. Maybe you guys can connect as well.
Perfect.
I think you guys have had kind of similar journeys and things. And just I was like, man, y'all's story kind of sounds a little similar. So you might be, maybe you can have him on your platform. Like
Yeah.
we'll help each other.
Yep. That's perfect. Yeah. I'm always looking for more interviews too. So I appreciate that.
Gotcha. All right, y'all. Well, listen, if you like this interview, don't forget to hit the thumbs up button. If you want to see more videos like this, subscribe. And as always, the application of knowledge is power. And we will see you all next time.